There is a fifth dimension.
About the unknown.
Beyond that which is known to man.
The Garden of Thought.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace.
Unexplained.
Mythologies.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call
The Garden of Thought with Jeff Lippman.
Eventually, our sun will grow cold and go out.
Whether a thought is spoken or not, it is a real thing, and it has power.
It won't just take us. It'll take Marilyn Monroe, and Lao Tzu, and Einstein, and Morobuto, and...
The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience.
All of us was for nothing. Unless we go to the stars.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
The Garden of Thought.
Welcome into the garden, and we're returning in. It's not even a phrase. We're returning to the garden. A recurring guest, Professor Patricia DeGennaro. How are you?
I'm doing well as I can be at this time in our history. How are you?
I'm okay. We were talking pre-production that we're both sort of a little bit exasperated. So the professor's been here several times before, but for those of you who are new, she has been working in the defense and intelligence sphere for a long, long time. She's taught at West Point. She's worked for the DNI. She's all over the world. She's, when I catch her, it's usually between jaunts to Japan or Korea or Africa or here or there or the other place. So you can, give everyone, I guess, the basic 411 on your background so they get an idea who you are and what you've done.
Yeah, former professor at NYU. I just happened to be there during 9/11 and finishing up a course, another degree, a master's degree in international security. And so teaching at NYU for almost 15 years, and then, doing a lot of consulting, advisory work for different generals in the military and different parts of the military. Right now working on some National Guard things, which is very relevant for our time in using the military. And I think that I usually bring up some topics for Jeff and I to discuss, and then, he also has some of his own. So I think, my first topic today is military suicide.
Oh, wow.
Is how I would put it.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, I think that this administration is really putting our military in a very precarious position. We have, first of all, a Secretary of Defense that is very incompetent. He had not ever served as an active duty officer, let alone run any agency or government agency, and retired as a National Guard member, so he should know a little better than to be using the National Guard in the way we've been using it in California as a major. And it seems that he's keen on firing upper level general officers, maybe because he doesn't want anybody above his grade, but that's putting the military at a very, very bad position, and where people just don't know how to lead, and the office is quite a mess at this time. And And I think our military is not getting the support it needs. It's not getting the support for technology, for research and development, which aligns with this administration's, I guess, need to get rid of all of that. We don't want any research and development. We don't want new technology. We just want to spend a lot of money on this idea of an Iron Dome. And meanwhile, we have adversaries or other nations in this world that are spending a lot of money on the military, including Russia and China, and without continuing or maintaining a world order, we're finding ourselves a lot weaker, I think, than even our peers in the global realm.
I don't know a whole lot about that stuff. I do know that they campaigned upon being more supportive of veterans, both active and after active. And, the VA benefits, like every part of it has been cut. The first thing they got rid of was like the veterans dedicated suicide and mental health hotline. I think they tried to reinstate part of it, but sort of the damage was done. I don't know how much has been fixed, if at all. I'm also really confused. I've always been confused about the National Guard thing. I mean, I get the president's commander-in-chief. So I never really understood why a governor had to ask for a president. I mean, I almost think it was like sort of part of this fiction that the Second Amendment, the well-regulated militia, somehow translated modern to the National Guard, and so it was a state-by-state thing. And I always thought that was sort of bullshit, because whether we like it or not, and whatever anybody thinks about guns, I mean, the colonists just freed themselves in armed revolt from a tyrannous government. I think that's why they wanted to have muskets and cannons and things like that. And, I'm sure people can differ on that. But, okay. So the president uses the National Guard in California. It goes to the Supreme Court and they say, yeah, the president can do that. Now, I thought there was a pretty big divide, though, with the posse comitatus statute and active duty military. So the National Guard, I could wrap myself, I'm not for it, but I understand. President, Trump's governor, that was sort of a nicety, but not necessary. But 700 Marines, which as I understand it, did almost nothing. Like they basically sat in a
not a nicety, and it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand the National Guard. There are two different components that we have within the military. One is our reserve element, which means you have a life, you go 2 weeks or something out of the year for a little training or a little commitment, and if the U.S. needs you in a war, you are called up to fill gaps. And we did this a lot in Afghanistan and Iraq because we just didn't listen to General Shinseki, who told us we need some 200,000 troops if we were going to Iraq. We fired him instead, or the administration at that time fired him instead, and they called up a lot of reserves. But the National Guard is different. Doesn't mean that you don't call the National Guard in times that are necessary, or do not use them as gap fillers in times of war. However, the National Guard is set up to protect the homeland first. So that means that it protects each state has a National Guard in order to help it protect that part of our homeland. Okay, those troops are the governor's responsibility. Okay, so they report to the governor, and they're there for any issues that seem to be, definitely an emergency issue where the homeland is under attack, is having, a mass civil issue, which we had a civil war in the past, so we needed to call up, and we basically started, a well-regulated militia at that time, which became the National Guard, in order to help the states protect themselves in event of attack from a foreign nation or, a hurricane, a natural disaster, and in a case that some of us have been in and remember a situation after 9/11, which was very tragic and very destructive. So, and they were only called really not to basically guard the area of the two towers when they fell, in order to protect that area so firemen could get in there and it wouldn't be disturbed.
Right.
So in the case of California, which you brought up, normal procedure would be if the California governor felt that there was a demonstration or some kind of riots that he could not manage with his own police force, he would call the president and basically say, you know, we're going to call up our National Guard, but that would be his decision. Now, the president, again, is only able to call up the National Guard if, again, there is an emergency. Say there was a bomber that came to the homeland, or in a case if we don't have enough soldiers overseas, where they would help them. They also go overseas to help in disasters and humanitarian assistance. In the case if we don't have enough people abroad to do that. Now, if the president decides for some reason that he needs to call the National Guard, then what happens is they become active forces under the president. So they're no longer National Guard. They're no longer part-time or soldiers and airmen that are called up and report to the state. They now become the responsibility of the commander-in-chief. So for him to do that without asking the governor is kind of, it's kind of like, well, I just want to come in and, you know, take your resources. I don't want to ask you if I can borrow them, but I'm just going to take them. And once that happens, all of those National Guard become active duty service members and are no longer
in normal
part
times
of the state. So they're required to act under active duty service.
in normal times, who pays the National Guard, the state or the federal government?
It depends on what is used for. So the answer to that is both. The state pays the National Guard to be used within the state, usually national disasters, humanitarian, hurricanes, things that, you know, need to be, you know, that the governor would feel that is out of control. Otherwise, they're really not called up. If they're called up to service, that's the president's responsibility, because they again become active duty. Now, there are parts of the Guard who have what we call a state partnership program that is under the Department of Defense, and they work with other countries. For example, New York may work with Georgia or Nigeria, and I'm just kind of making that up, but the states work with international partners, and they learn to train and cooperate and do humanitarian or disaster relief and humanitarian work and the like. And so they go back and forth. They come here and visit the states, and they go there and help training within the country, depending on the programs that they set up with those state partners. Now, that is funded by the Department of Defense, and it's under the Secretary of Defense. So you have a little bit of both, and that's really to maintain engagement with international partners, some training, especially in disaster relief, peacekeeping, and, you know, to have relationships with those partners.
Sure.
So we understand
Georgia, like Europe, Georgia, not like Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
So when they're federalized, do they become federal? Are they paid exclusively by the federal government, or is it still shared?
If they are federalized, they become active duty officers under the federal government. So yes, that is how they should be paid.
this part's probably unimportant, but if they're in the regular National Guard, I assume they go to the Army. If they're in the Air National Guard, do they go to the Air Force? I mean, is that sort of how it works?
Well, those two components work together, and it really depends. One will take the lead over the other depending on what the incident is. If we have a humanitarian disaster or fires in California, the National Guard may, the Air Force may come in and help out with putting out those fires, or you might get some troops on the ground to maintain or help, maintain an area, evacuate people, get people to safety. So that would be an instance where the governor would call and say, we need National Guard troops to support the fire department, for example.
Right, and that happens.
And help evacuate citizens after a flood, which they are doing in Texas right now.
Yeah, I mean, we all pretty much expect that in when there's a giant emergency, hurricanes, floods, wildfires. I mean, we don't bat an eye on that. And probably
But never in history does a president call up the National Guard unless the governor would call him in this instance, if all of California went up in arms, where the president, but in any instance, it's like outside of protocol not to speak with the governor and say, look, I really find this an emergency. Do you feel you cannot handle this? And as soon as the governor says, no, I'm fine, I can handle it, that should be the end of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the only other time that a president called up the National Guard and federalized them sort of over the governor's objections was, I think, in Alabama to escort, to non-segregate or desegregate school to make sure that the kids got to school safe. So, I mean, it's a bit ironic, that it's not unprecedented, but it's been used once before, and that's what I mean.
Right, but that was major. They were sending dogs after children, and they were beating people up, and it was just really.
Listen, I think whenever there's a difference between law and order, most people will generally go towards law and order. You go to order over law in the, I get it. If I'm in Los Angeles and roads are being blocked and whatever, and I'm trying to get to work, I want Iron Man and the Avengers to swoop in too, in the moment. But I mean, I don't think it's any accident that they picked Los Angeles. I don't think it's any accident they picked California. I would fully expect the next places would be places like San Francisco, Portland.
No, it's completely political, and that's another issue. These are completely political issues. If you go against me, I'm going to find some way to hold you to what kind of status or what kind of behavior I want to see. And I think, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, had tried repeatedly to make some kind of peace with Trump and the conservative MAGA movement and failed miserably. And this is what he got for it. And then he got 2,000 Marines, which are not, and you brought up posse comitatus, and this is an important issue. The Marines are not the people to quell an uprising. They're just not. They're taught to be at war in a foreign country and in that type of situation. And the law is you don't call your military on the American public. And a lot of people say posse comma what? They don't even understand what that means. And I think, it's a very important legal term to understand and recognize, because your future depends on that. You can't call martial law on the American people. It's against, law and regulations, although this administration does not like to listen to legal.
Now, I know that the National Guard issue wound its way through the courts. I don't think that the Marine issue wound its way through the courts, so I might be wrong. But so I don't know what the courts would have held. So precedent was not created with the Marines other than the doing. I mean, I'm sure people suspect what certain courts would rule and what certain courts wouldn't rule, but we don't know. But they were there for a long time. I mean,
There's still the National Guard, there's still some members of the National Guard that are there and haven't been called away. And they're asking themselves and their senior leaders, why are they there and what are they there for? It's just, it's really not been crystal clear to them. They also, if the president has called them up, he needs to pay for them. And I think he forgot leaving them without food, water, living places to live or stay during their time.
They were in a warehouse, an empty warehouse that had no air conditioning, and they nowhere to be. I think even field kits were forgotten, like tents and sleeping bags weren't even part of the deployment because they weren't expecting that. I mean, I'm sure they got those there later, but I mean, in Los Angeles, they could have got them a hotel.
This goes back to what I said earlier about military suicide, right? If you're willy-nilly or ad hoc using the military in illegal ways or without cooperation of the governor, what else how is this going to turn out? And, I think we all have to be careful because, once the military is used against Americans and directly against Americans, that can happen anywhere. And I think that we all should be speaking up against this. And the Supreme Court ruling, I am mystified how they would think it's okay for him to do that in a very, small situation that the police were able to handle by their own accord, and they didn't really need that interference even in the legal matters.
Yeah, it is very strange. And so I have a friend, his name is Homeboy88, and that's not his actual name. I don't know his real name, so how good a friend is it? He said, I trust you, I'll give you my name. I said, I like it better this way. But anyway, he's in the area, and, I said to him, I said, it's a trap. I know you're not going to be going out there or whatever, but if you have any voice whatsoever there, just tell everyone to stay home. I know they're going to want, but at the first line of looting or any, we'll just say, celebrations when your basketball team wins the NBA title or your team wins the World Series, anything that resembles that, it's an excuse. It's a trap. And then they walked right into the trap. But the whole
problem is that people aren't going to be putting up with this behavior anymore. I mean, we have Homeland Security officials, quote unquote, that I can't tell if they're Homeland Security officials, and this is where it all started, right? Masked Avengers are coming to take you away, and we don't know where you're going. There's no due process. There's none of that, and it's just, and people are disappearing. Now, this is something that, I've spent a lot of time in the former Soviet Union realm, and the Middle East and, Afghanistan and these areas. And this is something that, in my mind, I've fought against and fought to not have happen in the world, because we're promoters of democracy and being free, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So, my question is, I really compliment these people for speaking out against this type of behavior. And I think that Americans need to ask themselves, is this what they want? Because this is what happened in Eastern Europe and Russia, that people just disappeared. They were taken and disappeared. Nobody knew who took them, where they went. And usually in those cases, they ended up dead or in a Russian prison.
Well, the trick is
they're ending up in, camps right now.
I mean, it's being normalized. And yes. I think the administration has been caught a little bit that usually the local communities are against it, but because they're doing it so sparingly, it's not everywhere. Yeah, but I heard something where I think it was the DHS or border ICE head was saying, and listen, I'm not to defund ICE. I'm not an abolish ICE. We need customs enforcement, we need border enforcement. Every country does. But we said they're wearing masks to protect their identities. I'm sorry, you're alone. I mean, every police officer could say that. Every FBI agent could say. They don't. They wear a badge. They portray it. They're supposed to say, police officer, law enforcement, federal agent first for the purposes because you're supposed to be above that. So I don't buy that nonsense.
Your Miranda rights.
And just some of the videos we're seeing of like them beating people up and really indiscriminately over petty things, citizens, people with showing up at their immigration meetings, timely complying with the law, people who are permanent residents, and then the deportations. Like they deported 5 people from 5 different countries to apparently what was formerly Swaziland or Pretoria. I don't know, but it's like Eswatini. I never heard of the country. I mean, there's deporting people to South Sudan, which, by the way, has been involved in horrible, sectarian intra-Sudanese war for, 30 years or something?
Yeah. Terrible violence. People are,
And like the president of El Salvador, who is a pretty no-nonsense guy, he's basically imposed martial law in his own country to clean it up, to get control over the narcos by any means necessary. Even he's like, are you sure you want to send me these prisoners? And then the Trump administration say, oh, they're under the control of El Salvador. So I was like, no, you're paying us. It's okay. They're yours. And then, they try to trade them to Venezuela.
It means that somebody can pick you up anytime, any day because of the way you look, because of the way you're walking, because they think that you might be Spanish or, Latin or Black or whatever it is. So every day, and you're not safe. And I mean, there's plenty of quote unquote white Americans that look very much like they could be sisters of the people they're picking up and brothers of the people they're picking up in these instances. And then they pick up Americans and they go, oh, well.
Oopsie. Has anyone actually taken a good look at the Ayatollah in charge of Iran? If it's not for his headdress and his beard, he's a white guy, or looks like a white guy. Because Iranian, that's where the word Aryan comes from, is Iranian. I mean, we're all mongrels to an extent.
Do your DNA, that's what I say, pretty much.
By the way, what was it, 110 years, 120 years ago in this country, Irish need not apply, then Italian need not apply, Jewish not need not apply. It isn't that long. It's like
I was one of the Italian, and I'm one of the Italian.
It's generational. Us and our grandparents, even if you're not a person of color, or I know that Italians and Sicilians will say, we're people of color. Okay, fine. Whatever. The point is that these pendulums swing, and they're like gyroscopes. They don't land. It's like a craps machine. It doesn't go just in one direction.
Yeah, I always say to people, be careful what you're wishing for, because this can turn around. I mean, it turns around in this particular administration all the time. One day you're the smartest, best, whatever person in the whole wide world, and the next day you do something to Donald Trump and you are this, worse, stupid, without a head, and whatever it is he wants to, criticize you about, and, your looks, anything. And, it can happen to you. And this is what we see in dictatorships and places like this. I mean, we could just look at how many people in Russia, are being killed based on, well, Putin wants you out of the government right now, so you disappear. But again, with the disappearing, right? And so, you died of some poison. I mean, right now, J.D. Vance is on the out. What's happening? We haven't heard very much. We just know he's not attending any meetings. Before he was, the best vice president, smartest guy ever, and now who knows what's going to be said about him. And I mean, that just goes for anyone in Trump's orbit. And so I'd be very, very careful. And the more he dismisses laws, the worse it's going to be for you to be able to legally defend yourself in any way. So it's a tragedy, and it is. Be careful what you wish for is the advice I'd give.
And they're picking their targets, and they're doing they're using fighting anti-Semitism to fight Columbia and Harvard. Okay, nobody feels bad for Columbia and Harvard. but you should. They're suing the Wall Street Journal. Maybe people don't feel bad for the Wall Street Journal. I don't know when Rupert Murdoch all of a sudden became, a liberal.
Rupert Murdoch was Donald Trump's best friend, Fox News, right? And now he's his worst enemy. He's suing his best friend. I mean, it's insane.
The New York Times suing. I mean, all these places. I mean, listen, I never watched the Colbert Show and late night ever. That has nothing to do with. I mean, I just didn't. But was there pressure to get that show off the air because he's a critic? Yeah. Maybe I don't know. But
I think we should ask ourselves some questions. Like, some of the propaganda. It's a very much a propaganda, a narrative war and a disinformation war. That's happening out there. It's not good to be educated. When did we get there? It's not good to have research. When did we get there? And again, that goes back to here I come with my military suicide. If we don't have the best technology, how are we supposed to win tomorrow's wars? And, it's quite embarrassing seeing Secretary of Defense Hegseth with this drone over his head that couldn't go backwards or forwards correctly. I don't know if you saw this video, but it's out there saying, we're going to be the best in drone technology. Well, China is flying drones in formation, fighter jets, right. And we can't.
All those UFOs that you thought you saw off the coast of New Jersey a year ago, all of those were Chinese drones.
There you go.
Hopefully, some of them were U.S. drones too, but it doesn't seem like it.
It's a really tough situation. I mean, when was it that we decided we want to ban books and stop people from reading? We didn't want to learn our history. History is so important, and I think, we're seeing this manifest itself. You don't want to learn your history because then you understand what's happening today.
Right.
We're going back to no Catholics, no Jews, no Italians, those shithole countries, So it's really, it's difficult for someone who kind of grew up in that, end of Cold War, peace dividend, welcomed international people, to my country, was enamored by the Statue of Liberty, really understood that it was, Americans had quite a place in the world to help people understand democracy, help people understand history, help people understand what possibilities are. I just don't feel that way anymore. I'm not sure what possibilities are here.
It's the strangest thing too, because we're the richest country in the world. Yes. We have one of the highest standards of living, and the places where we fail are because we've made choices that let's just say we want to be less generous with things like healthcare and whatnot, but we could afford it if we wanted to.
Absolutely.
It's just so strange. Usually when a country goes cuckoo, it's like after some horrible, hideous, Germany after World War I, and then the rest of the world treats you like crap, and all you have left is nationalism. I mean, that's usually, or usually it's some sort of populist revolution, like the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, that goes wrong, that leads to, it's so chaotic and crappy that you want autocracy. But we're in the catbird seat and doing it to ourselves. I mean, even Rome, everyone talks about the sacking and all that, and there was a lot, but it was mostly the civil wars that allowed these things to happen. I mean, so that's a parallel, but but we're not over, 3/4 of the world that matters to us anyway. I mean, we're not spread that thin. I don't understand what this is other than some evil manipulation of quasi-religious beliefs put onto the most a-religious person on earth. And all of it, the root of, not all of it, but a lot of it is there's 400,000 missing white Christian babies. Where are the 800,000 white Christian parents complaining about there are none. They've been paid off. Who the hell pays them off? The Jews. Okay. Well, okay. There you go. It's George Soros.
I'd be pretty upset. I'm the a-religious. I don't, full disclosure.
A year, by the way.
What?
It's 400,000 a year, by the way. And
well, full disclosure, I'm a person who would rather do without religion, and don't put your religion on me, please. Thank you. But, I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different countries, and I know my history. And if I were a Jewish person today hearing all of this anti-Semitism rhetoric, I would be really disturbed by it for two reasons. I mean, one, it puts people on, kind of on the fear scale, and so you're going to have backlash somewhere. But, this kind of, to me, in my mind, knowing my history, it ties into this whole kind of ideological evangelical Israeli, the Kingdom of Israel belief. And to me that, I don't want to be the conspiracy theorist over here, but that sounds very conspiratorial to me. And let's be, clear, conspiracy is usually when two people or more get together and try to influence politics or influence the way people are ruled, or decisions rulers make or the governments make. And it just doesn't seem to me like it's not for Jewish people. It's for somebody else's political gain or ideological gain. And this ideological part is where it really concerns me. I've seen the Taliban. I've seen, really ISIS issues and people who believe in ISIS, and you can't talk them out of these, things. And it's just that, and I just feel like I'm like, where am I? I have, people who want to not to separate church and state anymore. We should be Christian values. What? I mean, this is just craziness. Like, where am I? Your values should be respected, whatever they are, and you can keep them to yourself. And not push them on anybody else. But the irony is that, I don't want the government pushing anything on me, but I want you to be Christian. I want you to, not have abortions, but not have health care either, not have this, not have that. And, it's just really, it's kind of disturbing.
They're sort of picking from the buffet of what's a Christian value, what's their Christian value, what's their, I mean, aside from the fact that there's somewhere between 35,000 and 49,000 different sects of Christianity, there's that much disagreement within one religion itself. So, which value, which Bible, which interpretation. But I mean, it's
crazy. How can you watch people? You're watching people die from no health care. You're watching, and this is getting worse. You're watching people, not be able to prosper or be educated because of you're taking any help that they have away from them, and books. Okay, we don't want you to read about 1619, right? Because you'll figure out that we enslaved people. Well, guess what? We already know that. So let's acknowledge history and find a way to move on with it.
It was people, 400 or 500 years ago.
But we still live in repercussions from that every day. And if we're part of society, we're part of society. We have to understand our civic responsibility to each other. How do we, stand up and do our civic responsibility and not deny people things, but help them prosper. This is the difference, I think.
Yeah, just knowing that. I don't think there's anything wrong with knowing the history. How you process it is fine, and it's the non-imposition of it, and that's what elections are for. So that there is, but there's some checks and balances in the political system, so that
not anymore.
Right. So, but the design was so that if the mob did something mobbish, it wasn't necessarily going to be enforced, or at least it wouldn't for long. And
I fear that any checks and balances we ever had are all gone. They've been chipped away since year by year, I think, and it's not even a majority or a very well-regulated minority. I'll put it that way. That there are a lot of white men who have been, and women, and some white women who have been chipping away your rights and your system over the years, and we've allowed it to happen. And now we're just like in shock. Oh my God! Nobody wants to listen to a judge. Oh my God, they're taking away people without due process. Oh my God, what do we do? We can't, and the whole Congress is like, yes, Mr. President, whatever you want. We have a Secretary of State, yes, Mr. President, whatever you want. Secretary of Defense, yes, Mr. President. I mean, this is a crisis for us.
And does anybody give a second thought to what happens if the man drops dead tomorrow? I mean, he's not the most healthy guy, but tomorrow's not promised to any of us. I mean, if he drops dead tomorrow, whose vision is it? J.D. Vance's? Is it Pete Hegseth? Is it Tulsi Gabbard's? Is it Don Jr.? Is it Ivanka? Is it Steve Bannon? Isn't Steve Miller? I mean, which one of those he's not immortal, so even if you agree with every single thing that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth in this particular moment, and tomorrow if he says something different, you agree with that too. When he's not there anymore, who are you following?
It's going to be a lot very chaotic, I think, because there are no leaders right now, and there aren't any leaders coming after him. There's certainly a group of people who are willing to maneuver to get what they want.
Octavian, Mark Antony, and then who's it? Cicero? Who was the third? I mean, that's the Civil Wars. I mean, that's the Rome parallel again. So that's terrible. So yes.
Yeah, I mean, wars don't have to be fought with weapons, right? They can be fought with psychology. They can be fought with information. They can be fought. The war on drugs. What was that? I don't know. Just say no.
There were some weapons there involved too. I don't know. I'm not so optimistic about that part of it. Okay, we domestically we're very concerned. There's a lot going on in the world. But I want to run something by you that I hear. So when I say sources, I don't mean sources like you have sources. You actually have sources in the intelligence and defense industries, academia throughout the world. My sources are two. I have Kristaps Andersen, who does the Eastern Border podcast, and Mike Hilliard, who does the Red Line podcast. And, and basically their guests and the information they quote. Chris has been so spot on about so much. I almost look at him as the gospel, even though no one's the gospel. But it seems that there's a lot of dissension, a lot of things in Russia that are about to fall apart, but they've been about to fall apart. I don't know. It's like biblical in 40 days, everything's 40 days. So, I mean, are things in Russia, inside Russia, really that bad? I mean, I know that a bunch of oligarchs and generals and whatever have been unalived. The guy who lives on the 10th floor fell out of the 17th floor. Things like that would be funny if you're watching a spy movie, or maybe funny if you don't care, or maybe funny if you are looking at things in a vacuum. But it's about the 35th oligarch or general that we're aware of that's been unalived in Russia in the last 3 years. Is it really that bad domestically in Russia, which I suppose maybe is good for the rest of us? I don't even know.
Is it? I mean, our administration seems to not care as long as they have the upper hand on whatever, and they're filling their coffers, which they've been doing. I don't think it's really that bad there. I think, they're probably certainly having some problems based on some of the sanctions, but, they're still doing business with China. They're still doing business with North Korea. They're still doing business with Iran, Pakistan. I could go on. I mean, it's, is it really that bad? I guess it depends on what your perspective is, but I would say, probably it's really not that bad, and people are going to be wary about saying anything, right? Because or going against the system, because they disappear, right? They're in jail or they disappear, and
so we're not likely to get any help from inside Russia, which would lead to inside Belarus, which would lead to inside Georgia.
No, and I think we're less and less likely with our current relationships with even allies and partners around the world. I mean, right now, Australia pulled out of, this pact that they've had with us about if we go to war with China, they'll help us. They're like, oh, I don't know. We don't know if we're really going to be there now. And I mean, for good reason, because we have let people down. We're letting, NATO's bad tomorrow. It's good. It's good today again, because now we're mad at, Trump is mad at Putin, who was his best friend, and he was going to talk into, stopping the war in 12 days or less. And, So now we're back on the merry-go-round, right? Shoving some weapons at Zelensky in Ukraine, and people, and, the German chancellor is sitting there going, "Oh my God, what is it? Are we doing this? Or are you staying in NATO? Are you not staying in NATO?" And the only thing to me that seems for sure is that Benjamin Netanyahu can do whatever he wants. That's a for sure in my mind. But other than that, I don't think anything is for sure that I can see.
Yeah, and from a very far view, realizing that most of the countries in Europe are named after Germanic tribes, and knowing that the last few world wars were because of German aggression, I'm glad to see the Germans stepping up in order, but I'm not sure how good I feel about Germany really being remilitarized. Like being the economic engine of Europe and the banker for Europe, pretty cool. That's fine. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But now them being, stepping up, in the moment it seems good, but it seems like one of those things like in hindsight, really? Did you need to?
Well, again, that's a product of, this back and forth. Today I want this, tomorrow I don't want this. And I don't think the Germans are very comfortable with it either. Even, the government right now, but they're looking at it like, oh my God, if we don't have the United States, what are we going to do? And we need a backup, right? So we need to do something. Japan is even in this, the people who are benevolent, right? Because after, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which was horrific tragedy. They were like, we have to stop this, these nuclear holocausts and whatever, and they're right. Everybody seems to be arming because they're not really sure. And I think it's definitely two reasons. One, because we were the armor of the world, right? And whenever anybody else got in trouble, we would say, oh, we'll be there for you. But now it's not that. It's you pay your share for our bases that are all over across the country, and we put into place for those reasons that we could be there to defend or work, Article 5 or with our NATO partners. But that's not for sure. So I think, people are going, oh no, what are we going to do? And, that's part of the reason. And then the other part is, Trump is one day he loves you and the next day he doesn't. And the next day he loves you and the next day he doesn't. And so today you get you get a little food and tomorrow you don't. Tomorrow you get maybe a bucket of water, tomorrow you don't. This is a little tough, I think, for major countries who have had solid relationships, have relied on a world system of order, etc., are not seeing anymore. So it reminds me a little bit, if I could just finish with this real quick, of Afghan tribes, right? When they feel they're strong, they're okay, but when they're not, they're trying to remaneuver themselves to have some influence again until they can get stronger. So it's kind of on that strategy. Everybody's hedging. If you pay attention to a lot of the analysis that's going on right now, especially from Asia, is that people are trying to walk a very tight balance between the US and China not taking sides. And I think that's been going on for a while. But we're really seeing it now, and especially after these tariff things that are not only inhibiting more partners like Vietnam and others who have been, no worries, are on our side, are now saying, wait a minute, hold on, well, we're not going to take sides now. We're going to let China come in, and we're going to let the U.S., and we're going to...
Yeah, I mean, the financial illiteracy of this whole tariff thing, I mean, from the top down, is terrifying. And like the whole basis of it was nonsense about trade deficits and things, which is not the same thing. And then it was like, we're only going to impose tariffs on those countries that impose bigger tariffs on us, which is not true at all, or that we have trade deficits with. Meanwhile, we have a trade surplus with Britain. They were one of the first places that we put tariffs on. Israel, we have a trade deficit with, or a surplus with them. We put tariffs on them. I mean, it's like all willy nilly. It's like there's no rhyme or reason.
I think they took a lot. Again, Israel gets to do pretty much whatever it wants. I think it unfortunately lives in the ideological Well,
even with that, the tariff still, it's an exception even to that rule. So, it's all wackadoodle.
But this will take me right to another topic that I wanted to talk about, and that is the declining of the dollar and the American control over world financial systems. Right, so the tariffs challenging that. Trump, we've watched the dollar fall. Mostly because of his shenanigans with these tariffs and 50% today, 20% tomorrow,
and passing a bill to raise the debt. You can lower interest rates all you want. Other countries aren't going to. No, investors aren't going to invest in the U.S. dollar. That's what makes the value. And then you risk it not being the fiat currency, which risks international commerce via seaways and airways, which is really our primary job in the world is to make sure those things move.
Financial illiteracy, and I don't think people really. I'm not saying. I'm surprised that the financial community is not speaking out more, but we have had the ability to control the financial sector for decades, and this is why we can do sanctions and not allow Iran to transfer money through certain banking systems, and put people who give money to Iran on some list that they can't do business or they have to pay a fine, or so we've been able to do all of these things in the context of that arena, and from an international affairs perspective, that has been a very good tool in our toolbox to be able, to do some controls over different types of countries. But losing that power, losing military power, losing financial and economic power, and then losing diplomatic power, which we're not even really investing in, we're just firing the State Department. I think those are really three things that are going to be tremendously hurtful to our ability to implement our any foreign policy, which I don't think we've had one for a very long time, but that's just my vision, except for overthrowing leaders. We like to think that's been our foreign policy. Let's overthrow and see what happens. Let's bomb a little bit, let's overthrow and see what happens. Let's bomb a little more, let's overthrow and see what happens. So,
is there anything good? Are there any little beacons of light that we can look at anywhere? It looked like the Syrian government was pretty good, but then they want to kill the Druze, D-R-U-Z-E. But aside from that, they seem like aside from that little thing.
I think that was an internal skirmish that happened. I just, this Syrian government, I can't say it's a good thing. He was ISIS yesterday, and this is he's the best thing since sliced bread today. And the U.S. has a tendency of doing this, is propping up people that they think are going to be able to control and manage and govern, and they're not. So it's another instance of, overthrow again.
Not even that.
and causing a mess within a country that was very stable, even though the Assad regime is not a very nice regime. They were fairly free. Women were free. They could do jobs. People being non-religious and not secular was the way to go. It reminded me more of Eastern Europe than it did of any Arab state I've been in, but not anymore.
Interesting. And then, the spokesman, I think her name is Levitt, I remember her saying, everybody knows what happens when you drop 30,000-pound bombs on something. And, well, apparently you don't, because it hasn't been done before. But we didn't, because only one of the three targets was actually, I'll use the word obliterated for one, which is probably an overstatement. But the other two apparently were just sort of inconvenienced in the grand scheme of things. So, we send... we do, by all accounts, an incredible operation. Nothing, no scrapes on anyone fly across the world. And it was unwarranted. They were having discussions with Iran already. They were actually making progress. Well, warranted or not, if you're going to do it, finish it. Do it right. No, but, again, you have to go back to thinking about second and third order effects when you make decisions. How do you want to make a decision? What kind of world do you want to create?
we're creating like this free-for-all world, right? So I don't, we have to start thinking more like evolved human beings, right? We're going back to the Wild West. I mean, look at the U.S. You can shoot anybody you want. You can beat up anybody you want. You can put anybody you want, deport anybody you want. I mean, this is becoming the Wild West all over again. And what's happening in the world is following the fish rots from the head down, as they usually say, right? In my humble ancestry, this is what we say. And, so the world is having a free-for-all, right? I mean, Russia's just hopping in Ukraine, Belarus is over there, maintaining a posture, Poland's running scared. It's just everybody, Israel's bombing about 5 or 10 different countries. Okay, 3 or 4. Including, if you want to include Iran, probably 5. And I mean, it's like a free-for-all out there. And this stuff this is a reason that Eleanor Roosevelt wanted to build a UN, worked hard to build a UN, so we could prevent these types of, internal, external wars, violence across nations, and find ways to discuss and act like civilized, evolved human beings, which I think we've just negated as a society, world
The answer is
society.
no, nothing good. No, nothing.
Nothing good.
Nothing good. All right. Well, that's maybe the asteroid will hit after all. So that's one thing.
Asteroid.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, the good things are that people are speaking out. I mean, I think that we'll see how far that goes. Jon Stewart just did a very I'm just going to fight. It might be all by himself, although I'm willing to help him. I think that is a good thing.
I'm booking that show.
What?
I'm booking that show.
You should.
Sure.
But
I'll do a lot for him.
I mean, I would like to, I'm hopeful that, younger Americans start taking some responsibility for and think more about a vision they would like to see this country.
They're watching anime and playing video games.
Don't see you're ruining my little hopefulness.
They're also worried about how they're going to ever pay bills, and how they're. I mean, those are the 3 things that they don't see a way out, so they're sort of without hope, which is. I know.
It's really disheartening seeing the young kids so depressed these days. I mean, they're just depressed. They're depressed about climate change, which is now apparently an aberration. They're depressed about, things. They're very concerned about things going on in the Middle East.
You heard that Ozzy Osbourne died because he got sick after he took a COVID shot. Not his entire life of abuse and Parkinson's in his 70s is like a perfectly normal thing. Not that it's tragic. I love Black Sabbath. I love Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. I mean, I'm saddened just like everyone else, but I was as surprised that he was still alive. But to tie this to a COVID shot and to have people believe it is insane.
Yeah. Well, that's like Donald Trump. I didn't know Jeffrey Epstein. I haven't talked to him for a long time. And how many women, and this is the thing that I just don't understand. I'm going to go on a little tangent here, is that how many women have told us what has happened with this whole situation? And we're like, we still need the list. Why do you need a list? We don't believe women ever. This is it. Just ask,
If they want the list I'm telling you, because they wanted to show you who this cabal is that runs the world.
25 whatever women came out to accuse Donald Trump of sexual harassment, and everybody's like, okay, like Epstein files are going to matter to people that don't care. They don't care about women. They don't care about what happens to women. They don't care about what women say.
Clinton, Al Gore, Barack Obama, Joe Biden.
They should all go down. They need to all go down. I would say good riddance. I'll run for president. Here we go.
Source, there'll be a bunch of Rothschild's names. Let
them all go down.
Something like Joe Satan, John Enlil. It'll be like Baal Hadad will be there. I mean, it'll
Nothing
be.
will happen, right? We'll go, oh yeah, okay, whatever. Because why? We don't seem to care anymore about anything. We don't care about people being deported. We don't care about people getting shot, especially children getting shot in school. We don't care about. We don't care. We don't care about this. We don't care.
Because we need our guns to fight off the government, which at this point, right now, when 2,000 Marines have been deployed to Los Angeles, you can't even call that crazy any longer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like everything's a flat circle. It's like it all meets together, and the whole world's about striking balance, and we are way off balance.
We're way off balance, and that's why I said, like, where did this come from? That we have to brainwash people and not educate them, stop them from reading, stop them from doing things, firing women generals. I mean, what happened here? Black people that are generals. I mean, what? Yeah. That's why I say we are a product. We are living the product of the beginning of this country, and they're going backwards. They're going back to 1619, not ahead of 1619.
I think we might be going to 1619 BC. I mean,
that could be quite true.
It's like the Bronze Age collapse or whatever. I mean, if the Phoenicians are replaced with UFO invaders or Chinese hyper ships, that it couldn't be more exactly perfect. I already decided what I think the song is going to be, because she kept saying Wild Wild West, so I'm thinking of Wild Wild West. I just can't decide whether it's the Will Smith version from the movie or like the 80s dance pop Wild Wild West. But if you have a choice for a song, it doesn't have to be Wild Wild West. I always use Ball of Confusion and Take Away This Ball and Chain by World Party for your shows. So you get to pick.
No, I don't know where I'm going to go with the song. I usually have a song, but right now I can't think of anything. So I guess you know what my song is? Don't Pee on My Shoes and Tell Me That It's Raining.
Who sings that?
There was a singer way in the past that I looked up. I forget who it was. So I can't tell you.
Well, I know the expression, so I'm sure I can find the song.
And that's what I feel like is happening right now. And everybody's going, should I really listen to that?
Well, tell them where they can find you and support you, if there's any way to find or support you if you want to be found.
Oh, there is. I've just redone my website, patriciadegennaro.com. It's just up and running. I'm starting to write new blogs. They'll probably start coming out in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully working on a podcast. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, my goodness.
I finally am getting around to doing something.
That's right. Maybe get Jon Stewart on it, then you can have.
Yeah, I used to live by him in New York, but this is not going to help me now. I'm in Tampa.
So I'm looking on this. Don't pee on my shoe. Oops, shoe. And tell me it's raining. Put in song. Let's see what happens here. That's a thing apart from a movie. The one I just saw, a personal injury attorney's commercial from here. I'm not sure that there is actually oh wait, yes, Mickey Clark.
Yes.
Looks like a song. Okay, it's Don't Piss on My Boots and Tell Me It's Raining.
There we go.
All right, there we go. So, folks, you may be already hearing it. So you heard her, read her blog. Spell your name for them so they can get to you correctly.
Patricia, DeGennaro.com. And yeah, and look out for hopefully maybe a podcast in the next 6 months.
So excited. Well, you'll have to promote it here as well. All right. Very good. Excellent. Okay. So for those of you who are somehow here because you don't already listen to the show, maybe you're a fan of Patricia, or you found this by accident, just go to Garden of Thought, hit subscribe. You'll generally get between 2 and 3 shows a week. One is a lot like this. One that's on the weekend tends to be, a little bit more fantabulous, architecture of Mars, or something to do with archaeology or pop culture or witches and mythology and fun stuff like that, werewolves, whatever. And then my little guilty pleasure is what I call the Gospel of Thomas, because my co-host is Mr. Thomas from Major League Wrestling. And we talk to people in wrestling, but generally about non-wrestling stuff. So most recent guest is Leo Fox. He's a Bronze Star recipient from Iraq, as we were just talking about. And he also wrestles for a few of the territories with the NWA, OVW, was in Control Your Narrative, and was an all-around nice guy and interesting story, and spent a lot of time with us. And Thomas is off in August, so I'm already rounding up guest co-hosts, which will open up the door for different guests. So imagine the fun we'll have on that. Yeah, so exciting. And if you like wrestling, I do a couple shows on the Wrestling Soup Network. I review LFG with the legendary trailblazing, one of the queen of hardcore and deathmatch wrestling, Lufisto. Yep. And I also, on the Wrestling Soup and Friendos feed, which is their secondary feed, I do the Evolve review show called The Dose of Chocolate, with my co-host who's on hiatus right now, White Chocolate, who's neither white nor chocolate. But we have found co-hosts for that as well. Lots of fun there, a lot of wrestling nonsense. But if you just like this is cool too. All right, I've kept the professor here long enough. Thank you all. Tune in next time.
A low mileage one on a beauty that's pristine clean. Only driven to church on Sunday, parked inside a garage all week. I said, buddy, you're slicker than his younger's oil dripping out from underneath. I said, don't piss on my boots and tell me it's raining, 'cause you know this ain't my first rodeo. You got that do me in love. It's a page from that age-old playbook. Why don't you take his car and stick it where the sun don't glow?
I could tell the politician was lying, because his lips, they were moving, asking me for my vote on my TV. Well, it sure come hard to swallow that snake oil that he's selling, and I sure ain't gonna bet the ranch on those tall tales that he's telling. I said, don't piss on my boots and tell me it's raining, 'cause you know this ain't my first rodeo. You got that do me in love. It's a page from that age-old playbook. I can't vote for you or any other Larry Curly or Moe.
I saw that. Thought she was pure as the driven snow. She snowed you. She wanted me to marry her and live real large.
That large part, what's it? I happened on her MySpace
and her YouTube expose.
I saw that too.
I said, honey, you sure do look real good.
You look good, baby.
But I got other trails to blaze.
I said, don't piss on my boots and tell me it's raining. 'Cause you know this ain't my first rodeo. I got that do me in love. It's a page from an age-old playbook. I sure ain't your man. Go find yourself a gigolo. If I make it to the pearly gates and I get to meet my maker,
what are you gonna say?
I guess it'll be my time to come real clean.
Clean as the driven snow.
Well, I know that I ain't been perfect.
Yes, you've been close.
And on that final judgment day,
What's up?
there won't be no white lies told, 'cause I don't wanna hear him say, yeah, I don't piss on my boots and tell me it's raining.
Raining, Lord, Lord, Lord.
'Cause you know this ain't my first rodeo. I got that do me in love. It's a page from an age-old playbook. I'm sorry, cowboy, but they're waiting for you down below. Everybody singing now. I said, don't piss on my boots and tell me it's raining.
Oh, Lord, Lord.
'Cause you know this ain't my first rodeo. I got that do me in love. It's a page from an age-old playbook. It's time to hit the trail. I gotta giddy up.